Hey guys, Hush here, and today I'm launching this YouTube channel and thought I'd start things off with a Fightstick collection showcase. For the uninitiated, Fightsticks are basically just video game controllers. They have roots in the arcades and are typically used for fighting games, shmups, and beat-em-ups. There are a ton of different stock models and mods that you can do to them, but I've always gravitated more to the fully custom ones. I've been accumulating these custom Fightsticks for quite a while, and I wanted to give a tour of the collection up to this point to showcase some awesome builders both past and present, but also to help any new builders entering the scene with a dose of inspiration. I grabbed some interior shots as well as some footage with outdoor lighting so you could hopefully really see what they look like. I also try to give a bit of history about the case designers or how I ended up with a particular build, as well as case measurements for anyone trying to make their own custom enclosures. Some of the builders have moved on to other ventures and no longer produce new sticks, but I'll leave links to the ones who do in the video description. So anyway, I keep this collection housed in two-seater display cases with angled shelving and LEDs. In no particular order, let's start things off with this one. It's a more recent pickup, but the case designer Satsui Customs hails from Spain. They focus on wooden enclosures and vibrant colored stains. The watermelon pink stain on this one is a lot brighter in person. I got my tag on the artwork for this one, which I don't normally do, as well as some creepy wolf in sheep's clothing theming. In my gaming, I guess I'm more drawn to the villains over the heroes, so you'll see several different bad guys featured front and center in a lot of my artwork choices throughout the video. Anyway, this build uses a Brook PCB like almost all you'll see today, but I popped in the PS5 daughter board add-on to make it compatible with the PlayStation 5. The layout is fairly atypical, sort of a hybrid of Sega Player 2 and 30mm cross-up style concave buttons. The eyeball ball top was made by another builder, Chris F., the Fightstick guy, to match the artwork. You'll see more of his work later in the video. But yeah, check out Satsui Customs of Spain if you're into this style of stick. Next up is a case I picked up back in 2018. The seller, Ace Theory, promoted his work back on Shoryuken and Etsy under the brand Rage Pad. He offered a variety of neon colors and layouts, and you could mix and match. All the top plexi panels were very vibrant, blue, orange, green, pink, all very loud and neon. The bottoms were black or silver, and it came with Rage Pad branded art beneath the top plexi. I kept mine stock for a while, then I added some Pink Panther stuff, but then overhauled the theme completely to some war elephants and some new buttons a year or two later. I normally prefer 8 buttons, but I didn't think this stick would work very well with that many. The seller was testing his own layout, which I believe he called Rising Fury, so I opted for that. It reminded me of a Hickory transitioning layout with a fairly substantial downward sweep. I thought it was ergonomic and it definitely felt better than a straight 6. All in all, it has a functional handle and it's slim and portable, especially with the link. I really thought it was a cool design, and you don't see rounded sticks very often, so this was pretty novel. Sadly, he closed up shop less than a year after I purchased, but I hope someone brings back rounded cases in the future. Mark Bueno, this guy. He's a master musician and a master woodworker, and when I saw what he was doing with Fightstick enclosures, I knew I needed one. I'm a Vega main in the Street Fighter series, so I thought it would be cool to go that route for the theme. Mark made me a sweet sign for my bar with his CNC machine, and then he turned to his scroll saw for this custom case. Not only is the quality of everything at a super high level, I think after I sent him the Vega files, he took maybe only a single month to knock out this stellar case and mail it back to me. That is extremely quick turnaround in the custom Fightstick enclosure scene. When you look at the art, you'll see that each of the almost 60 little pieces is individually cut with a scroll saw. And the colors don't come from dyes or paints either, but actually come from different species of wood, so maple, yellow heart, purple heart, cedar. The bottom removes with magnets instead of screws, so that's also something that's fairly unusual. I popped in a Botero / Lever Lover short shaft in a Sanjux V3, added a rose resin ball top, and called it complete. This was my first next-gen stick I got for Killer Instinct and in anticipation for Street Fighter V way back in 2015. I really like the idea of those old medical drawings being used as a basis for the stick design, sort of in line with studying in the lab and dissecting your opponent's playstyle. It was just a cool concept for a stick to me. I contacted Fohammer, a father-son team out of Colorado, to talk about the project. I knew I wanted it a bit bigger than their normal offerings, and I wanted an extra face button map to select. back in Street Fighter 4 days, you could plink back or select with jab to double your chances of hitting those one-frame links on light starters. This enclosure was similar to their stealth cases, but an XL version, so around 20% bigger and heavier. The whole thing was wired up by mods by Steve, and he pad-hacked both a Rock Candy Xbox One pad and Sony DualShock 4 controller, and you just hold a button on startup depending on which console you wanted to play on. There was also a kill switch for the select button, since the PS4 repurposed it to share. It is a really cool stick and one of my favorites for a long time. For this next one, it helps to understand who B15 SDM Designs was and how he influenced the fight stick scene. He was an elite builder from the UK who made some of the wildest bespoke fight sticks, and even though he hasn't taken a custom order in years, many of his builds are still talked about to this day. So anyway, this Stay Free Marshmallow Man was part of a raffle back in September of 2017. You could buy tickets to win this particular stick. I'm a huge fan of the Marshmallow Man and a B15, but I somehow missed the deadline to buy tickets by just a few days. I was crushed. But it never left my mind. I messaged the winner a year later saying that if he ever wanted to sell it, I'd be happy to buy. I never heard back from him, but a year after that, out of the blue, he had a friend list it for sale in a Facebook group. I saw the post maybe 2 minutes after it was live and immediately pounced. It was pristine when it arrived and looked exactly as it did in the original pictures 2 years before. I even had to update the firmware in the Brook UFB because it hadn't been played. I have kept it unmodded as I received it, as it may have been the last one B15 offered to the public. I love how thick the acrylic is, and I wish more acrylic sticks of today went with this heft. Very cool stick. Shepard, the son half of that faux hammer fight stick team I mentioned earlier, built me this one, even if he wasn't initially the biggest fan of my T2 villain theme. There's certain advantages that can come to using all-button controllers, though I'm still a sucker for joysticks. That said, this was my first dabble into this world of all-button controllers. I had tried hitbox-style layouts in the past, but the 24mm buttons weren't immediately intuitive for me coming off so many joystick builds. For this project, I opted for the Shioken Star layout, so it has the 24mm buttons for the left, down, and right inputs, and then 30mm buttons for the jump and all the normals. We used metallic silver Sonwell buttons, a UFB, custom wiring harness, and some sweet Robert Patrick-inspired T1000 artwork. Tales from the Stick. I had a lot of fun planning and building this one out for Halloween in 2020. This was a Junk Food Custom Snack Box version 1 case. I opted for the goldenrod top and bottom pieces sandwiched between a lime green middle. I love Tales from the Crypt, so I thought it'd be fun to bring in elements from the original comics as well as the HBO show and even the cartoon show from the 90s. It turned out super corny, but in the best possible way. There's even some pun-laden monologuing in the style of everyone's favorite Crypt Keeper etched into the front. I swapped the button rims on some super vibrant buttons to sell that center slime vibe. I also used a Sanjux V3 and this ridiculous skull ball top I had stashed in my supply of fight stick parts, and I'm not sure it could have worked out better. I popped in some LEDs and keep it set to a candlelit orange color, and put on some foam backing for soft lap play. The strap also makes it super convenient to tote around, so I'll probably be bringing this one to EVO 2022. This next one was a metal enclosure called a Panzer 3i from Jason's Customs Creations. I've got a bit bang shuriken installed in lever and a Kaimana LED kit mounted on top of the Brook 20 pin. It's also got the Pro Cable upgrade, some foam padding, and custom ball top and feet. But my absolute favorite thing about this stick is the artwork. My wife is a big fan of orchids, and I really like mantises, so what a better fusion than an orchid mantis. Watercolor painter Rob Carrillo did this one for me, and it was printed directly onto the plexi. I believe this case was from an East Coast builder called Carvd, but I regrettably don't know a lot about him or his work. It was an older case, and I picked it up secondhand. Anyway, I thought it would be amusing to theme a build around Captain Planet, or at least the Don Cheadle version of him from those old Funny or Die sketches. I used a glow ball top, pink shaft, glitter dust washer, and some appropriate art with his best quote. I loved inserting the Planeteer power rings into the button art as well. The whole theme is pretty corny, but it still makes me smile. On to the next one. I picked up this large AFS case secondhand, and it came with this interesting custom cross-up inspired button layout, with a lot of the aux buttons double up on the face, as well as this great custom color. The gray tones reminded me of old black and white films, so I thought a drive-in monster movie mashup would be a fitting theme. Bearwitt is a digital artist and wiring guru who routinely teams up with one of the nicest guys in the custom fightstick scene, Aaron from All Fightsticks. I told them the vision and they made up the rest, complete with custom etched foam padding by Murs Arcade, inspired by old school theater marquees. It's a really high quality build and the whole thing just feels like a tank. This one is a B&B version 2 from JXK Designs. When I was a kid, my favorite Transformer was Devastator, and it's always cool to do something every now and again that would impress your 8-year-old self, so I went with that theme. On a lot of builds, I have a hand in the art direction or use my own sketches to anchor a design, but I was completely hands-off outside the initial concept and win quote. I just told Johnny and Clev to whip up a Devastator stick, and they ran with it. I went with the Sumitsu LS40 as an alternative to a Sanwa JLF, very comparable in price and buttery smooth with zero mods. Johnny surprised me with some LEDs, and this was actually the stick I took to Evo in 2019. This next stick is a bit of a weird one for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it doesn't have a joystick at all. And secondly, the art and design, it's a little out there. The art was actually inspired by the eldritch horror versions of Garfield the cat, routinely posted on the imsorryjon subreddit. And the case is hand-painted with some Garfield stripes to carry that theme through the whole project. The enclosure itself was crafted and painted by Chris F, aka Fightstickguy. Instead of a joystick on this build, I went with a Mixbox-inspired drop-in arrow key setup called an Odin from Omni Arcade. This is probably the second hardest stick for me to play on, just because my lifetime of joystick use doesn't transfer very well to WASD or arrow keys. It is still a blast to mess around with though, and out of the entire collection, this is my eldest son's favorite fight stick. This was a special stick because it was my very first one. Red Sanwa parts and an NES controller theme. It came from a building outfit out of Arizona called Arcade in a Box. These wood and vinyl cases boomed with the Street Fighter IV release, and then after a couple years, sort of faded away. These builds were originally pad hacked to play on 360s, but the wiring and board in mind has all since been replaced to play on current hardware. You could order a variety of layouts, and this one was a curved wide, which allowed a bit more room between the stick and the face buttons. This was one of the originals, but Arcade in a Box went through some design changes as they went along, and their cases got about 2 1/4 inches slimmer, and the aux buttons were also positioned to the side so they'd be less likely to accidentally be pressed during play. The company sort of faded away, but I count this as the catalyst that set me on my course of fightstick customizations. This next one was originally a hard-used B-15 Manny Pacquiao build from 2010. I acquired it from the original owner just a few months ago, but it had a fair bit of wear and tear and some water damage. The reality was that I wasn't going to be able to bring it back to B-15 standards, but I wanted to give it a light restore to bring back a bit of its former glory. I received the case, disassembled it, and gave everything a thorough cleaning. It had since been converted to a stickless layout by its previous owner, so I kept that angle. I replaced the face plexi, PCB, and installed new metallic crown 202s to align to the fresh new take on the artwork. B-15 had painted the case in the style of a Filipino flag, and I didn't want to change that. I did some color match touch-ups, and then worked with a Filipino artist to theme it around the legendary Sarimanok. The day was overcast when I grabbed this outdoor footage, but trust me, it really pops out in the sun. This one was built by Faux Hammer back in mid-December 2017. It was a full Hickory case, done with a lot of care and craftsmanship. It's got a Brook Universal PCB, custom wiring harness, and their own style of interior lighting that they had branded disincentive LEDs. But that wasn't the only little touch they added. They used a thicker grade plexi for the bottom panel, put a really cool angle on the recessed auxiliary buttons, and kept this stick ultra thin. The button connections are all soldered on the sides to give it that extra low clearance. It's a really cool little stick. Up next is the Buttercade Area 51. It definitely catches attention because of that fun fusion of minimalist and retro sci-fi style. This one is probably my wife's favorite in terms of aesthetics. The sides are 3D printed, and a resin printer was used to make some lime resin plugs for the sides as well as a matching bat ball topper. It utilizes a JLW magenta lever and definitely clocks in as the lightest of all my sticks. The open air concept also means that the wiring is front and center, so it has to be on point. I felt like this case was one of the rare enclosure offerings from Buttercade. And just like a real alien sighting, I don't see too many of these out there. This next one is radical. The case itself was from a builder named Nitewalker from the SRK forums about a decade back. I always like it when I can integrate a wild ball top into a build, so I knew I wanted to go with a TMNT Technodrome mashup for this one. I commissioned my buddy Fightstick for the custom ball top I needed to really get this build off the ground. His art colleague Clay took my sketches and made some cool Dimension X face art, and then the turtle striking a cool pose for the bottom art. They both knocked it out of the park, and their contributions helped me out immensely. Under the hood, I installed a Brook Universal, wired up some Crown 202s, and popped in a Sanwa JLF with Auto DIY V5 kit. I also changed out the actuator for something a bit bigger, and then popped in a short shaft lever for a very different feel compared to a standard JLF. Cowabunga. At first glance, this next one might look like an original mass or multi-arcade system stick, but this is actually a mass style replica from another builder called JAMSTA. One difference being mass were made of MDF, and this one was fabricated from particle board. JAMSTA also equipped his with similar hardware, including the iconic P360 lever. The original mass has an interesting history in the FGC, and a lot of MVC2 players still swear by these classic sticks. You can ping JAMSTA for a similar build, or Scanline City is bringing back the brand with some new models, so definitely be on the lookout for those if you're into this classic style of stick. A friend of mine is also into fight sticks, and we thought it would be fun to do a collaborative project. After kicking through lots of potential ideas where we could have a pair of themed cases, we finally settled on a Godzilla vs. King Kong vibe, sort of a clash of the titans. This was right around the time that the movie was coming out too, so it was topical. Anyway, these cases are from Marvelous Customs, and we inverted the colors, the orange and the blues for the middle sections, so his is the direct opposite of mine. He claimed the Godzilla, so his version has more blues, and the art depicts that character winning the brawl. He had never wired anything before, but I thought he did a great job and even did some color coordinating with some heat shrink wraps. Cool aesthetic. Maybe next time we do one, I'll go with Ghidorah. This stick was originally a custom build from Buttercade themed around Captain America, but I just couldn't abide having a hero displayed in this collection, so I reskinned it around scenes from the Carnage USA comics series. Carnage is such a fun character, and Bearwitt grabbed scenes straight from the comics to give it some custom artwork. The case is from AFS, and the hardware is a bit atypical. Inside is a pre-release magenta lever prototype to dial in custom joystick preferences. The buttons all feature brown cherry micro switches, and we've also got a Brook UFB, some clean wiring, and an etched red window on the bottom. I thought this case maker had faded away, but I've recently seen what looked to be some new work up on eBay. Anyway, he used to post on SRK and offer up super reasonably priced cases under the brand Devastator or Nathanial Madbeast. You didn't have any direction in the case dimensions, but he kept them blank, and you just picked one out of a lineup. Then you chose the layout you wanted and he would cut it in for you. This was one of his smallest offerings, and I grabbed it up for my kid, who was 3 years old at the time. He was just learning to appreciate the real Ghostbusters cartoons, so I tagged it with some Peregrine paint and clear coat and put some Slimer Ecto-Cooler themed art in it. The buttons are all 24mm and perfect for his small hands to learn how to throw some Hadoukens. The wiring is a mess because this case barely had space for everything. For as many times as he mashed on it like a 3-year-old is prone to do, it's still in pretty good condition, all things considered. This next stick has a really interesting story. So back in the day, a company called Iron Galaxy, who you probably know from their work on Dive Kick, the Killer Instinct franchise, or Rumbleverse, they got their start doing ports of existing titles. And in 2011, they ported Street Fighter III Third Strike Online Edition to the PS3 and Xbox 360. To celebrate the successful port and a job well done, a senior at IG commissioned 20 identical Third Strike Ibuki fight sticks from B15 STM Designs to distribute amongst the staff there. This stick right here is one of that number. I do not work for IG, but I received it unused, still in pristine condition, probably 8 years after they divvied them out to those involved in the project. This is one I've never actually brought myself to use, and it even has that extra joystick gate that B15 provided still in place around the wiring as he sent it. This is just a really cool part of the FGC and Fightstick history. This one is a Storm Shadow themed A5 Falcon case I picked up from Second Impact. It's an acrylic DIY design they produced down in Brazil. Now, I've seen some Reddit threads where an occasional build would somehow make its way stateside, but by and large these sticks were rare to see out in the wild in my part of the world. I inquired about ordering a case, but the company refused to ship to me directly, so I had to use a proxy service and a lot of Google Translate to communicate in Portuguese. There was a fair bit of hoop jumping, and the shipping time to the US was something like a month and a half. Well, when it arrived, I assembled it and wrapped the middle section with artwork. That was pretty novel for the time, but Jony Fraze has since made it easier with his Espada builds. I color matched the gamer finger buttons with the artwork and went all in with some custom Storm Shadow aesthetics. If you look closely, you'll see that even the dust washer has those red cobra snake scales. This was the last faux hammer case I picked up before they officially closed up shop. It's a flat black stealth case, so fairly standard for them, but it has the layout reversed, so we've got a left-handed Vulix. I'm a lefty myself, but this stick is incredibly hard for me to play. A lifetime of muscle memory in the other hands makes this very counterintuitive. Messes my brain all up. It's still pretty wild if you're looking for a challenge though. Fun stuff. If you don't know what layout you want, you can just have all the layouts. I've seen hit sticks get more traction in recent months, and there's been a fairly substantial uptick in these builds being posted on the r/Fightstick subreddit. And as of this video, all fight sticks and Eternal Rival have blank hitstick cases that you can just buy outright. But I thought that if there was that much real estate to work with, we may as well have a bit of fun with it. I drew up a quick sketch of a Kool-Aid shaped case and picked the brain of Jerambe, a mad scientist of fight sticks, and he was sure we could make it a reality, and he cut me an awesome case. I passed on my sketch to Jony Fraze, who brought the art to life. I was gifted a Samitsu 40th anniversary lever set by that same friend who collaborated with the Kong and Godzilla sticks, so I put that in with the shortest shaft. I used gravity buttons on this build and replaced the switches with red Romer G LED switches from a collab between BitBang and Buttercade. Now each button press lights up red. It's a very loud, in-your-face fight stick and definitely catches attention. You know, I don't actually have a whole lot to say about this one. It's a pretty recent pickup for me, but the case is a fairly old, all-button Nitewalker build that I got from a fellow Vega main. I haven't touched the art, buttons, or internals. Before Focus Attack was the go-to art printing option for most of us, there was an outfit called Arts, Hobbies, and Tech Innovations that took care of a lot of printing and plexi options. They've since closed up shop, but this was one of their in-house enclosure offerings that you could buy and build out yourself. This one is an all-black tech case mini with gamer finger buttons, a JLF, and a Toodles MC Cthulhu. So yeah, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. That's the end of the custom collection up to this point, but I'm always on the hunt for others. You'll notice I'm still missing some heavy hitters like Vermonch, Voltec, and Birdo, but we'll probably get there one day. If you like this video, leave me a comment and let me know which stick was your overall favorite. This channel is brand new, but I hope to post the occasional video featuring more fight stick content, as well as some synthwave music and fighting game matches. Let me know if there's anything you want to see, and I'll see you next time.